program. And, of course, due to COVID, although could be changing very soon, the callers are the hosts and the guests. Matt Mankiewicz here, Mike Anderson, Zach Wilson. I believe Ken Fernman is joining us momentarily, and Chris Hamilton as well. And Chris is here. So, guys, how are you today?
We're all doing very well. Thank you very much, Matt. So we can definitely start it off with Chris Hamilton, Stony Brook baseball player who just graduated this season. Chris, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on tonight.
Hey Chris, before we go any further, did you get a look at the triple play today?
Yeah, that was crazy. Third time this season, you don't see that often.
No, you
Only
don't.
12
Matter of fact,
teams in
ties the
MLB
record apparently.
Wow, yeah, that's unbelievable. That's one way to end the game too. There was first and second, no outs, starting something, and then that happens. That's crazy.
Well, for a guy of your defensive prowess, have you ever been a part of a triple play before?
I have not before. Nope.
Well, that's luckily enough. As far as you being at bat, but I'm sure you would like to see on the other side when it comes to being out on the field.
Yeah, no, that would be pretty cool to be a part of it on the field rather than being on the offensive side of it.
Yeah, that's got to be humiliating, especially as the hitter. But why don't we get to the real questions? So I want to start off with this. All right, I want to address the biggest elephant in the room. So you guys are facing NJIT. It's the postseason tournament. You're at home, bottom of the third inning. You're up 1-0. John LaRocca just stole home. Bases are loaded. You've drawn 3 straight walks, and you're on deck. The skies open up even harder. NJIT's coach comes out. Game goes into rain delay, and you never get that final at-bat. So how exactly have you coped with that? How have you handled the loss? Well, if you want to even call it that, how did that situation go down to you? What were you feeling?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a lot of emotions flowing. We actually played the game the day before against Maine, and it was kind of similar weather. A little bit of rain, nothing you couldn't play in, and then we just had a feeling that once that happened, that something fishy was going to end up happening, with them in the winner's bracket, and it was tough. And then coach said the game was canceled, and then we knew there was rain all day tomorrow. So, there was a lot of questions going through all our heads. The coaches talking to us, but no, it was tough, and definitely not getting that last at bat is still a little sour.
Chris, you're part of a group.
Sure.
You're part of a unique group, Chris, that you got the extra year of eligibility thanks to COVID and the season that was cut short last year. So, and we talked to Ali Candy about this last week as well. You come back for another year, and you have your sights set very, very high. Got to the tournament in 2019, want to get back there this year, and maybe even go a little further, go a little deeper. But then not only is the tournament cut short, but your opportunity to get to the NCAA is eliminated through no fault of your own. That's got to be incredibly frustrating.
Definitely, yeah. Very, very disappointing. We were very lucky that the NCAA granted all us seniors an extra year of eligibility. Excited, working hard, getting to know the new guys in the fall. Of course, coming to Stony Brook from day one, your goal is you're going to compete for championships. So we wanted those guys that have never experienced that championship feeling before to experience it. And, it was tough. It's still pretty fresh in the mind. It's going to be tough to get over, but coming back and trying to get to the postseason with those guys and have them experience a regional opportunity. And the way it ended was, it was pretty terrible.
Now, I want to ask you this.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, there were some rumors. None of us were there, but you were. So what happened on that Sunday morning? Allegedly, NJIT didn't even show up to the field. And there is a pretty telling picture of an empty dugout on the third base side. Was there bus in the parking lot, or are the rumors true? Did they not even leave their hotel?
Yeah, we got down. We actually hid inside before because we knew there was some rain, and then we just got down to the field around 9:15, I believe. The game was set for 10:15 at that point, and I know the grounds crew was working on everything, and I'm not sure exactly where they were. They definitely never came down to the field. I'm not sure where they were, but we were kind of just sitting tight, hoping to get out there and get ready, and just coach had a few meetings, and he came down, and just the look on his face just didn't look too promising. And that's when kind of the emotion started flowing, and everyone was starting to realize that the season was going to be cut short.
We know there were definitely a lot of emotions like that. And really, the fact that you were the top seed in the America East tournament and Joe Nathan Field hosting the conference tournament for the first time since 2012, you figured that what we noticed that one of the problems that the NCAA and the America East may not have been able to let the America East Conference tournament continue is because of the absence of the lights at Joe Nathan Field. But we know that that's definitely going to be something that they'll be working on. Just, do you think that with stuff like that could have been added a few years ago, do you think that could have probably helped the America East tournament finish in its full length?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great addition to Joe Nathan Field. But, they knew everything that was happening. The America East knew where the site was. We usually start the conference tournament on a Wednesday. It was a Thursday, I believe, this year. They knew the weather forecast. So I don't think you can really blame it on, the America East not knowing we didn't have lights. I mean, they knew that. So I feel like everything was just there was no contingency plan for all this, and unfortunately it just didn't work out.
Okay, Matt, did you have a question or no?
Well, one thing that I do know about Coach Senk and his staff is that they feel for you guys right along with you, and I can only imagine the disappointment that they were feeling right along with you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're all very close with our coaches, and they tell us all the time we're just setting you guys up to be successful, and they put us in the best position that they can for us to succeed, either that's on the field or off the field. And yeah, no, they were definitely disappointed. I mean, I can't really speak for how they really felt, but they really were disappointed for us.
Absolutely. Well, I remember for us, we were live recapping the weekend. Yeah. And I remember it was so rainy that Zach couldn't even go to Joe Nathan Field. We don't have the equipment. And for it to be shut down like that was not only outrageous, but while we were kind of laying our frustrations there, the America East released a statement during the show where they kind of had their reasonings and their quote-unquote explanation. I'm sure you read it, what Amy Hutchinson, now former America East commissioner, said. What were your thoughts on that and her, response to the situation?
I didn't fully read it, but I mean, I did see something was out there. I know it got deleted, I think, at one point, but I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing, honestly, so I can't really comment on that.
But again, this is something where I really don't even think it's a coincidence too, where not that it played a big factor, but look, we're 3 weeks out and we're going to have a new America East commissioner at the start of next year. I mean, again, just the response was unbelievable. And this too against an NJIT team, Chris, where it really was becoming that highlight rivalry of the America East. Would you agree? Even though this is NJIT's first year in the America East, there were really a lot of chippy games, especially in the final series you two teams played on, especially that final day.
Yeah, no, definitely. Their first year in the conference, and I mean, they're a hard-nosed team. We're a hard-nosed team, so we were going to go out there and compete. But yeah, I could sense a little bit of a rivalry, starting up there. So yeah, that I would say that there's probably a pretty good rivalry between us now.
Yeah, again, it was just so chippy, those games. What was it really against them? Because compared to other teams, I felt Stony Brook was a lot more reserved. But, both dugouts were going at it. I remember that Sunday game where it was just both teams were going at it. What about them, or what about you, really brings out, I guess, those feelings toward each other? Is it that competitive nature?
Yeah, I could definitely see it being the competitive side of kids. I mean, we're out there competing all the time, but I mean, coaches always tell us to go out there and be classy and be a classy program. We're really not a team that's going to go out there and, look like a bunch of fools and mouth off. But, our coach says, be classy and let your playing do the talking. So that's how we go about business. I mean, there's some teams out there who, of course, are chippy and chirpy, and, we don't want to really get involved with that too much. But when it comes to a point where, your emotions are flowing and it's during the game, I mean, I could see that competitive nature really showing out.
I was on one of those broadcasts, and I had to warn people that, because we're directly behind the plate, as you know, and we have a microphone right there. So we had no control over what was being said in those dugouts, but we couldn't bleep it out. So if you're in sensitive ears, we apologize in advance. But that's what it was like when we were broadcasting the games.
Now, you had a 5-year career, so I guess there would be a lot to pick from. You got a lot of time to choose from this, but being that NJIT is now probably Stony Brook's biggest rival, who would you say your biggest rival was during your time here? Was it NJIT? Like, who was the most fierce competition that you played? When did it get the chippiest, the most heated? Who was that against in your 5 years here?
I would say UMass Lowell.
UMass Lowell. And exactly how was that? How was it different from the NJIT series? Because, from what we saw this year, I mean, even when you guys were facing off just in that one lone playoff game, between every single pitch, there was a lot of trash talk. I mean, the parents on both sides were getting into it. I remember Albert Choi making a throwing error, and a Stony Brook dad was screaming, "Oh yeah, what is that? A little league throw? Nice arm, stupid!" Just there was a whole bunch of trash talk on both sides of the field. So how heated did it get when you guys would play UMass Lowell?
Yeah, I would just say UMass Lowell, just because I think it was there for 3 years. I mean, we didn't really play them. We didn't play conference my 4th year when COVID cut it short, but I would say it was just kind of 4 years of competitiveness and at the same level of what NJIT was this year.
Now, with this rivalry, was there any sort of mutual respect, or was it flat out hatred? I mean, do you guys hate NJIT? You have a right to. Do you guys hate NJIT, or is it all competitive spirit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I hate the team.
No, I know it's a strong word, but you know what I mean.
We're not very fond of that team. I mean, just the thing that they pulled on us, and everything was just seemed to be set up. It just kind of doesn't really sit well. Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we shift gears to a more positive note? I don't want to keep bringing up the rain out and the NJ.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Well, I mean, I just want to say also another thing. Yeah. I mean, talk a little more about the America East tournament from a positive side. After the Seawolves lost day 1 against the Maine Blackbirds against a really tough pitcher for Maine and Sinicola, down by 2 in the bottom of the ninth to UAlbany with your season on the line, your team initiated a big-time comeback by hitting 3 straight runs, and after that, being able to go on an explosive offensive performance against Maine. After suffering what seems like an upset against the Black Bears in day one, how did your team begin to rebound by hitting those wins when you know your season was on the line?
Yeah, I feel like that was kind of the team we were all year. We had a lot of comeback wins this year. I think it just speaks for the group that we kind of were. We're just a team that wouldn't really we would play a game. I think there was a lot of series this year where we would go out game 1 and we'd lose, and then game 2 we would just flush it quick and then regroup and set our focus on the next game. And I think that just speaks to who we are as a team, and just being able to flush a game like that and just having clutch hitters in that moment against the UAlbany team. And then I think it's just what we did all year and kind of who we were.
All right. So on that note, I'm just curious. It's been about a month now, maybe a little over, since that since that whole debacle with the rain out and whatnot. But what have you been up to since then? I mean, is there baseball on the horizon?
Yeah, I kind of just been, after a few weeks, after 2 weeks, it was still pretty tough to get my mind right. But I've been, honestly, I'm down in Florida right now, hanging out with my parents and just kind of relaxing, working out, hitting, trying to stay in shape, see what happens with the draft in a few weeks, and kind of just go from there.
I just said that there are some summer collegiate baseball leagues going on this summer. Are you a part of that or not?
No, I'm not a part of any team right now.
And I understand that you did something last year or the year before, and it was up in Albany, I believe it was, or am I mistaken that with another Seawolf?
Yes, that was me. That was over the summer, last summer. I was up in Albany playing.
All right, so now let's shift to your whole career, because I mean, you had a long one and you had a very successful one. So you hit just about 300, 296 in your 5 years with Stony Brook. So what was that like? I mean, how awesome, how proud of yourself are you, knowing that now you can look back on yourself and say, wow, I had a great career at one of the highest levels possible?
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I mean, being around Coach Sank, Coach Martin, Kyle Lombardo, Coach Kavanaugh, those are all good coaches that are going to put you in the best situation to be successful. And just being around a great group of guys every single year, you talk about a brotherhood at Stony Brook, and just being able to go out and play your game and learn from each player and learn from the coaches and being coachable, I think is a big thing that helped me, and kind of just going about my business the right way and just trying to be a good teammate in the end. And, it was a great career at Stony Brook, and I wouldn't want to change it any other way.
Yeah, and you brought up Coach Sank as well. Could you kind of describe your relationship with him, kind of how it grew from the first couple times you met him to kind of how it ended, where obviously there's so much respect there between the two of you?
Yeah, no, Coach Sank, can't say enough about him. Great guy, great coach. He, if I were to say one thing about him, I think it would be really he makes you men throughout your time there at Stony Brook. He always says baseball is going to come to an end at some point, and I think he really puts you in a great position to be successful after school.
So what do you think Matt Sank did personally to get the best out of you? Because, every athlete's favorite coach got the best out of them, got them to perform at their best. Well, you can't really perform much better than you did these past 5 years. So what exactly did Matt Sank do to get the best out of Chris Hamilton?
I think just from day one, even meeting Coach Sank when I was getting recruited, I just felt like we had a great relationship. I just think we were very personable with each other, could talk about anything. I think he believed in me a lot. And then obviously towards the end of my career, I was starting to become more of a leader. And I mean, I think that he has enough trust in me to be a leader of the team. And I don't know, I think we were just got along great right from the start. And I think that really helped not even our relationship, but how other players can also be personable with their coaches as well.
And your experience at Stony Brook has helped you and your team go to the NCAA tournament back in 2019. How do you believe that experience playing against really tough teams, of course, you did against LSU and Arizona despite those hard losses to them in the regionals, how do you believe the experience of playing top-notch teams like that will prepare you should you eventually find your way into Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I think we go on a lot of fun trips at Stony Brook. Even preseason, went to a lot of cool places over the past 5 years, and playing the best competition that you can at that level will set you up to be successful at the next level. But yeah, coming to Stony Brook, you're going to compete for a championship and have a chance to go to a regional and play in front of a big crowd, in front of historic teams, and going to LSU was definitely one of my favorite experiences being at Stony Brook.
So I want to ask you this too, because we shouldn't even bother being bashful. I mean, yes, you're a great hitter, 296 career average. You were top 10 in home runs, RBIs, doubles, walks, but you're also a stellar first baseman. You're as good a defender as I've ever seen, as any of us have ever seen. You're irreplaceable over there at first base, okay, as you were at the plate. Now, which do you prioritize more, or which do you take more pride in? Is it your offense or your defense?
Well, I appreciate those words. I would say my offense. I worked on my offense the most throughout my 5 years at Stony Brook. I moved to being a first baseman my sophomore year. It was really tough. It was rough in the beginning.
Yeah, it's not easy learning how to scoop. I was a first baseman in high school. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. But, just from going upstairs in the hitting facility and putting the machine on, working on picks like that. And I think my offense was the biggest pride, but I worked hard defensively, just working with the guys, getting to know everyone and how they play, and just expecting anything over at first base. But I did take a lot of pride in my scooping over there too.
Of course. Well, that's always the most fun, Yeah, that always makes you look the best.
Yeah, was that something where, especially when you're starting, especially you got to grasp and really say, yeah, I'm going to really continue pursuing baseball. Did you find your home at first base instantly? I know you're an outfielder as well. Or did you kind of work around and found out first base was your best fit?
Yeah, I kind of just went with the flow. Sophomore year, kind of needed a first baseman. Coach asked me if I've ever played there. I said, yeah, back in Little League. I don't know how well I'm going to do right now. But, yeah, just the transition was all right. I was kind of the guy, whatever the team needed, I was there to help. And if I needed to play first base and learn first base and that would make us successful, then I'm all in for it.
I was going to say, too, looking at the numbers, I think it's a bit more than all right. I mean, nearly flawless is how I describe it. I mean, kind of looking back at the numbers, I think I only recall maybe one time there was an error that you committed at first base. I mean, it was incredible, especially seeing those interior defenders you played alongside over the past couple of years. Obviously, Stan Luther immediately coming to mind, Ivan Giordano at third. It's like those guys can throw it hard and from anywhere, and they are not easy passes to catch. And you do it almost, on instinct. How were you able to build those, relationships with those infielders, as well as really manage those sort of, mastering the art of the tough catching?
Yeah, just kind of getting to know your guys throughout practice every day and getting to know what they're like and you know, not every throw is going to be great. So you got to expect the bad one is what coaches tell us. And I don't know. I just think getting to know the guys, how they play, everything like that, really just helped me become a better defender as well.
Who are some of your favorite teammates over the last 5 seasons?
Oh man, no, that's a tough question.
No, a lot of them may be listening right now.
Yeah, geez, I can't really pick from everyone. I love everyone. People come to mind, you know, Bobby Honeyman, Dylan Rask, Mike Wilson, Nick Grande, John Tuchillo. There's just so many. Evan Giordano, Johnny Decker. There's so many. I can't even describe them all. I can't even list them all.
And when you list those guys, to me, the first thing that pops in my mind are leaders. And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, especially about Matt Sank. But really, that's how you describe a lot of players, especially on this Stony Brook baseball team. What is it, I guess, about this team where it kind of brings out those sort of qualities out of these players? What is it that really helps guys succeed when they come and play for Stony Brook baseball?
Yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about with Coach Sank and how, from day one, he really gets on you about getting better, being a baseball player. He wants you doing the best in the classroom. He believes in if you take care of your business off the field, it's going to show on the field. So I think it's just the type of baseball played at Stony Brook, classy baseball, hard work, dedication, buying in, and just thinking that it's a brotherhood playing here. It's an honor to play for Stony Brook and the legacy that Coach Sank built there. And I think that's what really hits home for the guys. And that's kind of what really helped me, is just wanting to be a leader and why I wanted to play for Stony Brook.
So when you were a younger player, a freshman, sophomore, who specifically, was there a specific player who took you under their wing, who, you learned the ways from? Was there anybody who mentored you, so to speak?
Yeah, I think my freshman year, I would probably say Toby Hanley. He was an unbelievable player. He was my roommate when we went away for games. I was obviously in the outfield at that time, so he definitely took me under his wing. And then, going on from there, just kind of, I was just big on following what the leaders really did and trying to be a leader myself. And there's just a lot of guys, but I think from the start, Toby Hanley really set a good example for me.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you kind of already answered this question just talking about how you have outfield origins, but, usually first basemen are, big, lumbering, slow guys. They don't really, play a whole lot of small ball. But you, I mean, being that you have that outfield background, you steal bases, you hit triples, how much of your speed or your base running ability is important to you? What percentage of that wow, how do I even ask this? This is on the fly. I'm sorry. But how important is your speed to you? Do you think that basically takes you over the top? Because as we said earlier, you're a great defensive first baseman, and you're as good offensively as there is anybody that we've ever seen, right? But you're a first baseman who can run too. So how valuable do you think that makes you?
I think it makes me pretty valuable. Being very versatile is, I think, a good thing that people like to see. And I used to be a soccer player, and now I used to play outfield. Now I'm first base. I just like to stay flexible, especially over there at first base. And I just think staying in shape and being able to run around is also a big part of a game that can make you better.
Yeah, and we shouldn't underscore that soccer statement. I mean, you own the New York State record for the most goals in a single season in high school soccer, 66 in your senior year. Could you kind of describe how you were feeling entering your senior year in high school? And did you know that baseball was going to be what you were set for collegiately, or did you still have playing soccer in the back of your mind going forward?
Yeah, at that point, entering my senior year, I was already committed for baseball, and I was actually on the line of thinking about quitting soccer and not playing and just focusing on baseball that final year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so, and then, I played soccer my whole life, and obviously my family's a big soccer family,
Right.
so not wanting to let them down, not wanting to let the teammates down who already, been so far. Just playing with them that final year, that was awesome. And yeah, it was pretty cool.
I was gonna say that's the opposite of letting them down. I mean, that's practically being the one-man show. I mean, it's insane to think about. In what was all likelihood, what would you say, maybe a 20-game season, if even that?
Yeah, probably 20, 25 games, I think.
And there you go, averaging about 2-3 goals a game. I mean, that's lacrosse numbers, okay? It's soccer. But no, you bring a great point too with your family. Obviously, your brother, I'm sure Jimmy, played baseball back at Roger Williams University. How was that relationship for you growing up in terms of dictating what sport you wanted to play and just being active all the time with your family?
Yeah, I played my freshman year of high school. My brother was a senior, so I was really amped up to be able to play a year with him, and then he went on to he was actually a walk-on at Roger Williams University and had a really good career there. And, I was always looked up to my brother. He was a pitcher, and he's given me a lot of good advice and, how to be successful and keeping my mind right. So, yeah, being around my family has definitely helped me.
So let's get to this now. So Stony Brook's baseball team obviously had a huge senior class, a very important senior class. I mean, John Tuccillo, the catcher, obviously you over at first base, John LaRocca in center field, and then 3 starting pitchers, Sam Turcotte, Brian Herman, and Jared Milch. So you guys are graduating a lot of, well, you already graduated a lot of players. That's a lot of voids to fill. Who fills the void at first base? I mean, enlighten us. Is he on the roster yet? Is your heir apparent already there? Or is he coming through the recruiting process? Do you know exactly who's going to step in for you?
I personally don't know. I think there might be a first baseman coming in. I know Shane Paradine has worked over at first base with me a lot, and he would be very comfortable over there. And, he's also a very good catcher, so I'm not really sure what they have in mind, but if they need any tips, I'll be free to help them if they need it.
Who do you see stepping up next season?
Offensively, I see Evan Giordano, Shane Paradine, Stanton, Brett, all those guys who play, Cole, Evan Fox. I think there's a lot of young talent there, and pitching-wise, Nick DeGennaro is the guy, and I think with his leadership, he can get guys on the right track and hopefully fill those spots, and I think they'll be just fine, with Coach Saint, Coach Martin, Coach Cav. They know how to do it right, so I'm not too concerned about that.
So
yeah, with that as well too, just so many things obviously going on that front. And what is there for you that you're really looking forward to now? Obviously, don't know collegiate baseball, but obviously, I'm sure you're anticipating furthering your baseball career.
Yeah, I'm not sure if baseball doesn't work out. I mean, definitely, I would love to give back my knowledge and what I've learned over my career and what I've learned at Stony Brook to give back to younger kids looking to play. And yeah, that's really what I would like to do. Definitely stay in the game of baseball.
So earlier this year, I write for the Stony Brook Statesman. That's the newspaper here, and I got to cover a couple of the baseball games as well as the softball games. I was the softball writer, but I subbed in for a couple of baseball games, and I got to speak to Coach Sank a couple of times, and one particular time we were talking about Stanton Luthner and adjustments he made. Stanton said that he had that Coach Sank had worked with him on a no stride approach, and then Stanton hit 300 for the whole rest of the year. Now, this brings me to this. Was there ever a moment in your career where you were slumping like Stanton Luthner was earlier this year, and coach worked with you on an adjustment that you stuck with and it really propelled you as a player?
Yeah, I think coach brings up a lot of points that kids can make adjustments on. Stanton, I mean, coach was working with him every day and showing him different things and bringing up old newspapers from when back in the 2012 team when they went to the World Series and they worked on no shot approach. And I think, you know, I can't think of a particular time, but I mean, just working with Coach Sank and Coach Martin and their philosophy and really just getting to know and how to be successful and what they believe in. And I think that's just having trust in the coaches. And I think that helps anyone who might be struggling at a certain point.
Do you ever think that it's like overwhelming in a way being around a guy like Matt Sank, a guy with, you know, basically a Hall of Fame pedigree? I mean, the guy's practically a celebrity. He has his own Wikipedia page.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get kind of like, I mean, this is kind of stupid, but do you ever get like choked up around him or anything like that? Like, is there ever a moment where it's like, wow, I'm speaking to the guy? This is the man, the myth, the legend. Do you ever realize that or think that or anything like that?
Yeah, no, obviously he's a historic coach and very well known around college baseball, and the things that he's done has been incredible. But I think as a player, I mean, maybe the first year you kind of just getting to know him and you know him as being that coach. And I think just I wasn't really ever, you know, I never really looked at it like that. I just kind of looked at him as a coach and someone who is very successful in what he does, and, you know, really got a great relationship with him throughout my 5 years, and I'm very grateful of that.
I'll go over a little news item that came out this past couple of days. The Commissioner's Cup, which is a general excellence trophy. It's a combination. The scoring is based on a combination of performance of all the programs at Stony Brook. And, of course, it's a big award for the front office. But I do know that there's plenty of interaction between athletes on different teams. And there has to be a sense of pride across the board, considering how well everybody has performed this year. Men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse, baseball, softball, everybody was good. And that Commissioner's Cup is elusive, too. Stony Brook's always been among the top three, but rarely have they won it. And when you guys heard the news, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. You know, Sean Hilbron, the AD, does a great job with all the teams. And I think a lot of the teams have a lot of great relationships with each other, and everyone feels comfortable around each other. Everyone's rooting on everyone. And I think that just speaks for the environment around Stony Brook athletics and everyone being there for everyone no matter what. And I think, you know, having that Commissioner Cup 2 years in a row just shows a lot about where Stony Brook is going.
I know that we're getting close to losing you. I know that we're running on borrowed time right now. So let me just ask you this. What was the best moment of your career?
Best moment of my career was the dog pile at Binghamton University when we won in 2019.
What did that feel like?
That was a surreal feeling. That group of guys was, I mean, I talk to most of those guys every single day still, and it was just an unbelievable feeling, just working hard all year long and really setting our goals, coming up short a few years before, and really wanted to put the finishing touches on that, and we believed all year. We were down both games in the championship series there in Binghamton, and just believing in each other, and it was an awesome feeling.
Yep, 10:41 here with Chris Hamilton. Chris, before you go, we do want to talk quickly with pros about you. Obviously, an avid player and an avid fan of the MLB. So I think first we start the Yankees, and they're a team where we had a lot of high expectations for, and they were struggling for a large part of the season. Had a great week this week, though. Just from an athlete's point of view, what is it like being on a team like, for example, Stony Brook, where maybe you have very high expectations across the board, and for a while you're not really living up to it? How do you, I guess, avoid letting the slow start get to you throughout an entire season?
Yeah, well, I'll start with this. I'm a Red Sox fan.
So you're loving it. You're loving it, especially because so many of us discounted the Red Sox.
Yeah, no, I didn't know what kind of year it was going to be, but they're off to a little bit of a slow start. I mean, the Yankees are obviously known to be that team and everything like that, but I think they're a very good team. I think they'll come together and be successful in the end.
I was saying, conversely, the Red Sox were someone who not a lot of folks had at the top of the AL East. They had, the Rays, the Yankees, and so far it's the Red Sox with a half-game lead above Tampa Bay. So what's really impressed you about that team, and who are some of the guys who are really, really wowing you so far?
Yeah, I love watching Rafael Devers being a lefty hitter. He's had a tremendous year. Xander Bogaerts, obviously, getting Alex Verdugo in that trade for Mookie Betts there. Wasn't really happy getting rid of Mookie Betts, but he's played very well.
Well, that's what it looks like right now. You can see how successful Betts is with LA.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say, for the Red Sox, too, a lot of great lefty sluggers. So David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Devers, as you said. I believe Bogaerts.
Manny was righty. Bogaerts was righty.
Oh, sorry.
Come on, Ken.
Sorry about that. But again, was there anyone, maybe a Red Sox in particular, you maybe idolize in terms of your batting and your approach?
My favorite player all time is David Ortiz, but I did love Jacoby Ellsbury. I loved his swing when he was on the Red Sox. I know he didn't help out the Yankees too much.
well, screw the Yankees, right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm a Mets fan. I could care less too. But
all right, perfect. We're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Good for you guys. Good for you.
Yeah, well, back in 2018 when the Mets played the Red Sox, both Mets and Red Sox fans were shouting in the stands, F the Yankees. So, I mean, we tend to come together over that.
I love it.
Well, I can't keep you for long. So I guess the final question would be this. What's on deck for you in terms of your future and obviously just future of baseball in terms of what you really want to accomplish over these next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, just going to be working out and staying in shape here, waiting to see what happens with the draft in the next few weeks. And if baseball doesn't work out with the draft, I really do want to stay in the game of baseball, whether that's being a coach or any way I could help out kids trying to be successful and getting to wherever they want to be and giving back my knowledge. And I think the relationships I've made and everything that Coach Sank has done to put me in a great position and making me a great man. I think we'll see what happens in the future, but definitely staying in the baseball world is my plan.
Might we see you at Joe Nathan Field next year?
I'll be back.
That's awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you there. And, of course, you're always welcome to come back here, too. So.
Awesome.
All right. Well, that was Chris Hamilton. And as always, another great guest here on our spotlight section for the sports section. And I mean, we want to talk about lead. Chris Hamilton is one of those guys. I mean, again, all throughout his collegiate career, you could just tell that the future was bright. And once he was an upperclassman, I mean, the sky was the limit. He was absolutely incredible as a Seawolf.
Yeah, there'll be a gaping hole there Hopefully Matt Sank knows a way to plug it. I don't know how you. I mean, Chris Hamilton
always does.
Well. Yeah, he always seems to have a trick up his sleeve. I mean, that's how you become the greatest America East coach ever. But Chris Hamilton, in his own right, is probably the best first baseman in Stony Brook history. So we'll see.
He's up there.
Oh, he's up. He's up there. He's way up there.
Oh yeah.
But in any case, we do have to talk about something we mentioned during the interview, the Commissioner's Cup. Like I said, for the longest time, except for the past couple of years, naturally, that the Stony Brook had fallen short many, many times. And they get beat out by Albany or somebody like that. But the amazing thing, well, what the Commissioner's Cup does, and we'll explain to people, it's a general excellence trophy that goes to the school that has the most success across the board. So you get points for, say you win a tournament, you get the NCAA, you win a game in the NCAA, things like that. And all of this adds up. And on balance, if you have a bunch of good teams, chances are you'll win it. If you have only one or two good teams, you won't. So that's the big difference between a Stony Brook and, say, a New Hampshire, where they have a couple of good teams and the rest of them stink. So I haven't seen the standings for it. As a matter of fact, you should open up AmericaEast.com so we can follow along. But the America East Commissioner's Cup is a huge achievement for the front office, in particular the athletic director. He puts that on his resume. I came to Stony Brook, and they've won the Commissioner's Cup 2 years in a row. That means he's effective at running the whole program. So, yes, I would love to get Sean Helbron on, get his impressions of that over the next couple of weeks, because that's important for him. It's important for Stony Brook as a general rule. And you've experienced it too. Find me a program at Stony Brook that isn't doing reasonably well. Silence.
Well, I guess the only thing right now that seems like the weakest link of everything else right now, men's soccer, I guess.
Yeah, but even then, it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, and even then, it wasn't that long ago where they were America East champions. I mean, that's really the thing where you're absolutely right. Where, again, at the start of, or let's say 10 years ago, as they said, Stony Brook was that school where they had a couple of really good programs, baseball, men's lacrosse, and that was really it. And then throughout the past several years, we've seen other sports really emerge. Basketball, obviously, making their first NCAA tournament. Women's lacrosse, the most dominant team in the America East, bar none.
All time, probably.
Yeah, I mean, even sports that were gone for a while, like swimming and diving, they've found much more success recently or the past couple of years than they did before they shut down, getting a few wins on the board, something they struggled with mightily before the program closed about 15, 20 years ago. So, that's absolutely right. A tip of the hat towards the athletic director, but really also a big factor has got to go to coaching and scouting, because those are two persistent things that really dictate the success of the program, because we've seen it in the pros. It really does. There are times where you could have a really good roster, especially on paper, but bad coaching is going to bring that down. And some of our coaches, I think the big thing is that they haven't been afraid to adapt and adjust. And we saw the results of that instantly. Volleyball, for example, Kristen Belzung comes in, first 2 seasons, wins back-to-back titles. Caroline McCombs, after several seasons, she's able to win back-to-back titles. Spallina, obviously he's the guy when it comes to success and instant success at that for her Stony Brook. He's the blueprint that a lot of other guys and girls obviously have followed. And I mean, it comes to that and all the great players like Chris Hamilton, like Riley Craig, who we'll see next week, Melissa Roberts, for example, and the list goes on and on. Allie Kennedy, Terrell Miller. That's really what it all comes down to for winning the Commissioner's Cup. And it was a close race. I mean, Stony Brook had 296 points. UAlbany was right below them at 294.
And UAlbany has a few Commissioner's Cups to their credit. Just want to warn everybody about that. But you want to know what really is a pleasant surprise and an achievement if you're Amy Huchthausen, the outgoing America East commissioner, because she oversaw their entry into the conference. UMass Lowell tied for third with UMBC, and NJIT, of course, getting in and winning baseball. But UMass Lowell had to languish for a few years. They weren't eligible for the postseason at all. And here Absolutely. They are among the top schools now in terms of general excellence.
Absolutely. They were the cellar dwellers for a lot of their existence in the America East. I mean, perpetually you will go through, sports, and they'd be the team with either 0 conference wins or just about. They were the ones where you kind of write them off in your schedule as the automatic win. And over the past couple seasons, though, they really improved and eliminated that stigma off them. They are a credible threat in several sports. We saw it in basketball earlier this season. Stony Brook knows about that last season. Hockey as well. They are often, very dominant. As looking at some of their sports as well, track and field, they've improved on, obviously. Baseball, they were more competitive now. And seeing a lot of their players return too, I thought really, of all the teams, it definitely helped them. I would argue more than UAlbany and Stony Brook, just because there was a lot of outgoing talent that were able to actually get another year, and they were able to push a lot of those teams that needed that year to adjust to the college atmosphere and college play style to victory.
Now, you take a look at Vermont and UNH. They are interesting situations, both of them, because both of them have sports that don't participate in the America East Conference. So does Stony Brook, by the way, football. But UNH has football, and of course they play Stony Brook in the CAA. Vermont has hockey. Both UNH and Vermont have hockey. And there's no hockey in the America East. Hockey East is a different conference. So they have a lot of money and time invested in programs that don't participate in the America East Conference, so that kind of works to their detriment. But the Binghamton, Maine, Hartford, and NJIT, I don't believe NJIT is in for all the sports, though. Is that true?
Yes, that's right. They're missing a couple.
Yeah. They're missing a couple.
Same with Hartford, which is on its way out.
Too. And Hartford's downgrading. They think they're spending one more year, and then they're going to downgrade D3, which means next year they're a lame duck. Because a lot of people will be transferring. They're going to be putting together skeleton teams. And it's going to be ugly. I really feel bad for Hartford. But if they have a chance to excel in D3 in the future, again, but Hartford has a long history at D1. The alumni can't be happy. The Hofstra alumni are still angry because they dropped football. But some notes from this very same press release. Every school reached the championship game in at least one sport. 8 schools won championships, with 7 claiming regular season titles. Stony Brook joins UAlbany, Boston University, no longer in the conference, and Delaware, no longer in the conference, as multiple Commissioner's Cup winners. The Seawolves won a league best 3 conference championships and a pair of regular season crowns. Albany narrowly placed second and has finished first and second in the Commissioner's Cup standings every year since 2010-2011. That's 10 years. UMBC's third place finish is its best since 2014-15 and matches its best ever finish. Okay, UMass Lowell, we just mentioned, their best ever Commissioner's Cup finish. In addition to Stony Brook's 3 championships, 4 schools won 2, including Albany, UMBC, UMass Lowell, and New Hampshire, while Binghamton, Hartford, and Vermont each captured 1 title. And where's NJIT? They won a championship too.
I think they forgot to list them, but that obviously goes on the one title being baseball.
Yeah, but they left them off. The indoor track and field championship
That's pretty
was
fitting,
not
huh?
held this year.
Probably because they know it's fraudulent. Go ahead.
That's pretty fitting.
But there you go. Now, I told you about the points. Okay, this is how it's done. In sports, a regular season round-robin competition is conducted. The first-place institution in the final standings receives 4 points times the total number of teams involved in conference play. And go read the release. I'm not going to waste too much time on this. But in any case, Stony Brook had – what's not there is how many times Stony Brook fell behind Albany. And Albany was always edging them out in the Commissioner's Cup standings. And it just added fuel to the fire as far as the rivalry is concerned. Like I said, if you're a player on one team and your team did well, you're happy. But if you're working in Sean Helbrin's office or in communications or in advancement or any other blanket department in the athletic department, this is huge for you, especially doing it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, just look back 10 years ago. I mean, it was Albany from 2012 up until 2018. That's 5 straight years of just dominance on the American East. Now you're starting to see the pendulum shift a little more. It's going to be really exciting to see, especially not just Stony Brook, but again, UMass Lowell, I thought, really shocked everyone. Finished tying for third, with UMBC there as well, over teams you would expect to be in the top 3, like Vermont, Maine, or Binghamton. So there's definitely, I think we're in a new era now in terms of talent and schools where some of those smaller schools who usually you wrote off as not really credible threats, they're going to start really picking it up. So it's going to make for a lot more competitive conference.
The class of the conference seems to have shifted away from the old schools and more towards the newer schools. Stony Brook and UAlbany joined 20 years ago. But UMass Lowell is recent. UMBC was there before we were. Vermont's an old one. UNH is old. Binghamton joined with us. Maine is old. Hartford's old on the way out. NJIT is new. NJIT is going to move up. We know that. But you also have built, and this is another thing from a commissioner's point of view, you want schools that want to compete. Amy Huchthausen had no control over what Binghamton, New Hampshire were doing. But she can say to an NJIT or UMass Lowell, we only want you if you're taking this seriously. And they did.
Yeah, so again, it's going to be fun. And again, we especially in New York, you see how competitive the local sports teams are. To see the America East, following them the past few seasons, really improve. It only helps not only the athletic directors and the future commissioner, whoever it is, but just the league as a whole. See, these non-Power 5 teams start to match up and soon rival one of those Power 5 conferences. It's going to take a lot more, obviously, but again, it's only good things. It's not going to be
the America East. The America East, like I said, before Amy Huchthausen took over, I'm giving her a lot of credit because she did play a strong role in getting the schools to upgrade their competition. She played a huge role in building America East TV and getting every game streamed. This is all what commissioners need to do to further the fate of their conferences, to advance their conferences. And I think the America East is stronger at this point in time much stronger than when she joined up, when she started the job. Absolutely. So that's definitely a feather in her cap. That is definitely going to be at the top of her resume. I took a nothing conference and made it something, that got national recognition. Because remember, the College World Series run happened on her watch. And we're not the only ones who made an impact. Look what UMBC did to Virginia.
Absolutely.
It wasn't just us.
With that's 11-1, going to transition to sports. And before we talk about the Isles, Vegas Golden Knights.
They have just Yep. Yeah, so let's go right there.
Victory against the Montreal Canadiens, 2-1. Overtime, quickly done there, Zach. And Vegas timed the series up at 2.
Yeah, I was just watching that. That was some amazing goal made by. Yeah, they were able to work it past Carey Price. I'm still trying to see through that replay who was responsible. It looked like that was Roy that was able to do that. Yeah, who wears number 10, Roy, definitely.
Yeah, that was
just like the Islanders and Lightning series, the series between Vegas and Montreal is all tied up at 2.
Oh, it's so fun watching the NHL playoffs. I mean, wow. Again, you don't
especially when it goes to overtime.
Oh, absolutely.
Pat, you're ready to next snap.
Yeah, again, it's just adding fuel to the fire on that storyline, because that was really one of the key storylines coming in, was how is Pacioretty going to feel? How's he going to play against his old team? And if that doesn't answer your question, I don't know what will. Again, a big assist right in front of Carey Price, just getting it over the high side, blocker shoulder. Carey Price was on the ground as Waugh was able to just put it, I think, bar down, not the top part. And it's impressive, too, because the Knights had Marc-Andre Fleury, their lead goaltender, sitting out after a crucial Game 3 loss at his hands. An inadvertent blunder behind the cage led to a turnover and led to perhaps tying the game late and taking Game 3. So I think the fun trend between both series has been, it's just so unpredictable, because on paper, you expect the Lightning and Vegas to just blow out Montreal and New York. And it hasn't been like that. It's been a tug of war, a stalemate through these first 4 games.
Yeah, it's exactly how Montreal was able to use Toronto, having John Tavares out for most of the first round due to an injury, to their advantage, especially being down 3-1 in the series. Then Montreal in the second round just killing Winnipeg 4-0, a brutal sweep, and now they are where they are right now. And for the Islanders, winning in 6 games in the first 2 rounds against Pittsburgh and Boston, with pretty much nobody would give them any idea that they would even make it that far against either one of them. But we've been looking at this for the last few years, ever since Trotz became the head coach. The Islanders have a knack for being a fun playoff underdog when it comes to playing teams that look better than them, but the Islanders really can give it one hell of a show.
With the series tied 2-2, they're not an underdog anymore.
Yeah, and what we saw from them last night, that big win, that making the top play in the SportsCenter top 10 last night, rightfully so. What we saw was probably one of the biggest game-winning saves by any Islander, especially if you're not even a goalie at all. Probably one of the biggest saves, one of the biggest defensive plays in Islanders history, in recent playoff history as well. Never seen anything like this from the Islanders in the playoffs. Not in our lives. I'm sure Matt may have seen a few others like this, but Matt, compared to what you've seen with the playoff dynasty that the Islanders were almost 4 years ago, what would you say about what they look like now, especially with Ryan Pollock last night?
This is where it gets tricky, because look what happened to Kevin Durant's performances, and we'll get into that. Or I said Mike Vaccaro, who, of course, is an old friend of mine. We know the whole story. He just wrote an article in the Post, yet another column, about Pulak's save. Okay? So he's trying to find something to compare it to, just like you just asked me. Okay, so he's got some categories here. I'm not going to read it verbatim, obviously, but he's thinking about this, and he put it out on Twitter and see how the fans responded. Okay. A few hockey fans point to Marc-Andre Fleury, Game 7, 09 Finals, made one of the most famous saves in hockey history. Okay.
Ironically, no.
Yeah, stopping Nicholas Lidstrom, saved the cup for Pittsburgh. But he illustrates Marc-Andre Fleury is a goalie. He made a save. That's what they're paid to do. Soccer fans, Abby Wambach's 2011 header in extra time that forced OT in the U.S. World Cup match with Brazil.
That one was also pretty cool. That was a pretty cool save, too. I think those are up there.
Peter Schmeichel of Manchester United and possibly saving a key game against Newcastle late in the 1999 Premiership. Google it. Both of them doing their job. But here's the thing. What makes it special is that Pulak was doing somebody else's job. That wasn't his job. He just happened to be there at the right time to stop that stupid puck. Okay.
Yeah.
Unforgettable, but not especially unique. Andy Chavez's catch in 06. Malcolm Butler's end zone interception of Russell Wilson that clinched Super Bowl 49. Chris Davis's 190-yard return for Auburn off a missed field goal at the Horn versus Alabama in the 2013 Iron Bowl.
The Rams. We're kind of losing the track there, but again, just to go over that play, Varlamov was dead to rights. He was on the ground, several feet away from the net. I mean, it was a wide lane net for Ryan McDonough to take, and Ryan Pulak again. He sprinted over from the top of the top of the wing to get where Varlamov would have been, and was able to not only block it, but get in the right position to block, get his body in the line of fire to have it deflect off him. Okay, he's not going out there with pads, get ready to block this shot for Varlamov. He's out there in his regular gear, literally putting his body on the line to knowingly take a shot to the top of the body, I believe. Or maybe he was offside, but still, and bounce off him. And sure enough, it rolled out, and again, an incredible save, and it really defines the Islanders as that team where quite literally you're to get 110% from everybody, and a lot of names who you wouldn't suspect to come up big are going to come up big in clutch moments. I mean, Kyle Clutterbuck, for example, and Adam Pelech, they both had 2 assists in last night's game. Okay, that's a fourth liner and a defenseman. Those aren't guys on paper you're really going to expect to have a great game. Although Clutterbuck's been doing it all season long, and Pelech this postseason as well has played tremendously. I mean, this is the Islanders team.
And really, Matt Barzal just continuing to be part of that leading, has gotten so many goals most recently after his start to the playoffs. Did look pretty rough with not really being able to produce any goals, but ever since late in the series with Pittsburgh, into the series with Boston, and now where they are with Tampa Bay, his goal last night, nobody could have gotten a much more easier look than that. I mean, even so, that was Vasilevsky's fault right there. Even he couldn't be able to reset himself in time the same way Varlamov couldn't really reset himself before Brayden Point made that shot on goal in the final few seconds of that third period. And the fact is, Varlamov got lucked out because his teammates helped. Vasilevsky did not get the help he wanted. Many more of his teammates were directed towards the right of the net where Vasilevsky was, and just wide open. Matt Barzal with clear vision and a great shot made just really got the focus and the easy space that he wanted. It was more than enough.
Not done yet. Okay. Rams Mike Jones tackling the Titans Kevin Dyson on the last play of Super Bowl 34. You guys all remember this. But now you get into the rarefied era of the top categories. Okay. Lou Pinilla's deke of Rick Burleson in the ninth inning of the 78 playoff with Boston. Everybody talks about Bucky Dent's home run, but Piniella lost Jerry Remy's line drive in the sun by the poise and guts to convince Burleson he had a beat on it. So Burleson didn't advance the third, where he would have scored the tying run on Jim Rice's long fly ball. Yankees won that game by 1 run. The Derek Jeter flip play.
That one I did see a lot of, actually. A lot of comparisons.
The David Tyree helmet catch.
No, I think we're cold again.
The Immaculate Reception.
No.
There we go with that.
It goes back to the 70s, but you all know about
it. In a way, yeah.
Like with Roger Pearson's Hail Mary, like the first Hail Mary ever recognized in NFL history.
No, but the thing is, it was a defensive play, which is, I think, what's really interesting. So you're naming a lot of offensive plays, and this is the first time where you're absolutely right. So what makes it so unprecedented is that this was a save. This wasn't a goal like you would assume we'd be talking about to be the play of the game. This was a save where quite literally you don't know too many guys who be able to produce the same results if they were in that position. I'm sure there's a lot of doubters, especially in Tampa Bay, who would have assumed Ryan Pulock could pull that off before he's all.
But that's what it's like. But he put Eddie
Absolutely.
Chavez in there, and that's the thing that kind of scares me, because like with Kevin Durant's performances in the past two games here, these last two games of the series with the Bucks, they only mean something unless you win.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, like Rusty Staub's catch means something because they won.
Ron Swoboda, you're thinking about in the 69.
Ron Swoboda, yes, yeah, Rusty Staub.
Yeah.
I'm
But-
an idiot. Yeah. But,
Andy Chavez, the Mets keep memorializing that catch. It was a great catch, and I was there. I saw it, I do know. I asked Tony La Russa after that game when they were celebrating what his reaction was, and it was because at that point the game was very much in doubt.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
And yeah, it was great play. There's one big glaring problem. Adam
Beltran
Wainwright's
strikes out.
curveball to Carlos Beltran that froze him.
Beltran didn't have the bat
The
system.
Mets lost the game.
well, you can't.
That's the
blame-
killer.
But yeah.
And for the Isles, too, turning towards that now, for them to avoid that Mets scenario, or that Nets scenario for recent memory, it's got to be producing, and especially that first of all, is consistency, like in every sport. Consistency, and to take the line from Joe Spina, stacking on goals. It worked yesterday. Got 3 straight, and when the Lightning started to battle back, the Isles weren't insured enough having those 3 goals in the second. Okay, there's no team in the playoffs right now that are better than New York in the second period. The outscore point is 23-10 in the second period this postseason. And the Isles are just tremendous defensively as well. They only had allowed one power play opportunity to Tampa Bay in yesterday's game. That's going to be the key. Keeping your guys out penalty box and dominating on the attack in the middle portion of the game is going to define this Isles team and victory. As we saw in the loss in Game 3, they really struggled to create a lot of scoring chances because they really didn't have the puck a lot, especially in that second period. And again, it's not a coincidence. Okay? When they were able to dictate the tempo, whether it's that slow, methodical pace, working up the zone, or burning the clock, passing all around the wing to set up a shot, or it's going fast, trying to create chances on the breakaway, that's really where the Isles exceed. And having those third and fourth line guys step up, that's the winning culture under Barry Trotz.
That's really it. Because that becomes second nature. You go where the action is. Forget about your position. You save the game. You bail your guy out. And he picked up the whole team because that was about to send the game into overtime. And with the Lightning, anything could happen.
The best offensive team in the league right now.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why it's 2-2 in this series is that the Islanders have not taken very many dumb penalties and put them in a power play.
That's right.
So there have not been a lot of power plays in general, and the Islanders have scored on a few. So, so far, so good from that point of view. It goes down to Tampa for, of course, Game 5 tomorrow night. And someone's going to come out ahead 3-2. And the Islanders can't let themselves get too far down if it's not them. Because Game 6, of course, will be in Nassau. Of course, it becomes a must-win.
And Braden Point's going to get at least one goal because he's on a 7-game scoring streak.
That's right.
You already talked that one down.
But the confidence you have in this team, the faith that you have in this team, that second period was probably one of the most dominant periods, 20 minutes, that the Islanders played all year.
Well, believe it or not, I've seen like, I think there was also another second period during the playoffs this postseason for the Islanders where they looked just as dominant. I mean, I recall because
that was Penguins.
It happened in Boston. I think it may have been Game 6. Yeah, it was. Game 6 against Boston. They also had 3 goals in period number 2. Brock Nelson twice and Kyle Palmieri during that second period, able to give the 3 goals that put New York up 4-1 after 2 periods.
And again, this is why I say there's no.
Yep, it was the final nail in Boston's season.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, that's why I say there's no better second period team than the Isles. Go back to the Penguins as well to tie the series up at 2-2. Remember the Isles in Game 4? It was 0-0 after the first period. They scored 2 in the second, surrendered 1 in the third, and then followed up with 2 more. They really hit their stride after the first 20 minutes. And again, if they're able to prevent Braden Point, for example, or really anyone on the line from finding the back of the net, then that's their best shot at winning once it comes down to the second period. Really, their only way to beat the Isles at this point is to prevent them from getting goals in the second, because unless it's overtime, they're not really doing too much damage elsewhere. But again, it's been incredible to watch. And again, for a team, or for a lot of our lifetime, they've been the cellar dwellers, to borrow a phrase from earlier. They really struggle. Now they're really showing that they are arguably the best team in the NHL, currently one of the best, trying to prove they are the best, and doing it with a lot of talented players.
Well, right now they're one of the 4 best because they're the only ones only 4 still playing.
That's right.
Yeah, and believe it or not, they have the 3rd most point, and out of the 4 teams that are still remaining in the playoffs, they have the 3rd most points, with the one with the lowest still, of course, is Montreal with 59. So let's say
point doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, actually it could, because there's still a very possible chance that if the Stanley Cup Finals is between the Islanders and the Canadiens, then it's the Islanders that have home ice. They'll have the 4 games guaranteed on ice, while Montreal only has 3.
Great point.
There's still the possibility of that.
Well, one thing that has been, first of all, just in time for the Stanley Cup Final, should Montreal advance. Justin Trudeau has lifted some of the restrictions across the border, but not all of them. I'm just wondering, if it is Isles Habs, would I be able to travel to Montreal for the road games?
Oh. That's going to be tough. They've been real restrictive on that, and slowly,
except
Canada,
that
obviously behind on the rollout.
I flash my NHL credential, I'm in.
You might be able to sneak out. I don't know too many, other Long Islanders though that are going to be able to go. But isn't it great though,
I'll
just to pack up the barn at least for one more series? Again, somewhere where a lot of folks outside of the island didn't predict the Isles would be. The barn keeps on living.
I will say this:
you know how much
that whenever the Islanders and Canadiens meet in the regular season, obviously they didn't this year, but normal regular season, they meet quite often. There are at least a couple of games that come down here. Take a look at the parking lot at Nassau Coliseum, and you will see that it's jam-packed with Quebec plates.
Oh, yes.
They make the trip down here. Now, they say tickets up there are hard to get, but the Canadians, as a general rule, travel well. Now, given that, I'd like to see what kind of further developments we see in Canadian border policy if the Habs advance to the final, particularly against the Islanders, because, like I said, the Quebecois will make the trip down here.
Yes, but again, on the flip side, if you got Isles and Vegas, you got the 2 most raucous crowds in the full season going to be butting heads. It is going to be a very loud finals. You're going to just, we talked about NGIT and Stony Brook. Multiply that by 50, and that's what you're going to get out of Vegas and New York. Just based off alone, not even off a rivalry, just off the pride of these 2 teams making it this far. Yeah, and the fact is, with the Islanders and the Golden Knights, I think that eventually, if that should happen, I think that the Islanders, are going to be plenty of Islanders fans still that may give a warm reception to the return for Robin Leonard, since
he was with the Islanders in the first year under Barry Trotz, and he did help them go as far as round 2. I would do that if I were going there.
You got the monitor on. You see that graphic? Tampa Bay 2 for 9 on the power play, 15 for 36 in the first 2 rounds.
Wow. That's key to victory. Again, 2 of 9 on the power play.
I was just talking about not giving him that many chances. The chances they've had, they haven't done anything on.
All right. That's the key. Before we go on to the Nets, though, quickly got to discuss the Rangers finally giving us some news. And what news have they blessed us with? Gerard Gallant named coach of the New York Rangers on Wednesday. And for those of you that may have forgotten, that Vegas Golden Knights team in the playoffs right now, he was the one who guided them to the Stanley Cup final in their inaugural season 4 years ago.
He's turned a couple of teams around.
Oh, absolutely. Columbus, Florida, Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. He has no Stanley Cup to prove it, but it's eerily reminiscent of Barry Trotz joining Washington and then obviously later New York. Remember Washington? He was in Nashville for so long. One of the best, still is arguably the best active for sure to coach right now. But at the time, Washington had no Stanley Cup to prove it. So he still had those naysayers and almost immediately won the championship. And then from there, obviously moved to the Isles. This, again, it's eerie how similar it's going, but you definitely get that vibe from Gerard Gallant. I mean, you want to know his pedigree? He coached Canada to a first-place win at the IIHF World Championship earlier this year. So he has that victory mentality. And, I mean, you want to talk about an upgrade from David Quinn. God bless the guy, but, I mean, good Lord, is this an upgrade? I mean, you want to talk about the top of the biggest of fish to catch. There's none right now out there that were any bigger than Gerard Gallant. This Rangers team, they have playoffs written all over them. They got the talent. We saw it with Panarin. We saw it with Zibanejad towards the end of the season. Defensively, Adam Fox, who was up for one of the Defenseman of the Year honors. The rookies and Keandre Miller, Alexei Lafreniere. Yeah, we know the talent's there. Georgiev and Shesterkin and that. Now they got to provide the results. And that's the guy who's going to get them the results. I mean, you want to talk about big winners? My top 3 for sure is the youth of this team. We saw it in Vegas, how the youth instantly took over that Las Vegas team their inaugural year to guide them to the title, upsetting everyone's brackets for sure, obviously. And just the fans. I mean, again, you can't ask for much more than Gerard Gallant coaching your team.
He's available.
Yeah, he sure is.
He's made a great move. Well, remember, only a few weeks ago we were talking about this. What kind of coach, and there's Pulak's play again on the monitor, what kind of coach do the Rangers need with the team at this stage of development? And you couldn't pick anyone better than Gallant.
It's true. And it was a long shot, too, because you got a new team in the Seattle Kraken who have a boatload of money and tools at their disposal. They're ready to just give out.
They're ready to pull out of Vegas.
That's right. And you know, it is. It felt like he was going that way, and all of a sudden, New York able to get another big name. And I mean, again,
here's another thing too. Think of it this way too. Compare and contrast. When the Islanders entered the NHL in 72-73, and the Caps entered a couple of years later, they were stuck with scraps. In other words, in the expansion draft, you know, they were minor league players, worn-out veterans, not much. And both of them turned in at the time, and I think the Caps' inaugural record is still the worst in NHL history.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And it took them forever. Well, the Islanders, it only took them 5 years before they were legit playoff contenders. Another couple before they won the Cup. But largely because, of course, good draft picks and going with the youth movement from the start. Islanders were the perfect example of at the time of an expansion franchise making good. Hey, the Mets won the World Series in their, 8th year of existence? So think of this, and of course, the absolute pinnacle of expansion excellence, the Vegas Golden Knights getting the Stanley Cup final in their first season. So, yeah, you're right. Seattle has an opportunity to come out of the gate as a legit contender. And because they've had plenty of time to prepare, they've also have more access to talent, and they're also, if they've got smart front office like Vegas did, they had an opportunity to get guys who were being overlooked. A Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury had a love-hate relationship with Pittsburgh. He won him a couple of cups, and he lost him a couple of cups.
Yep, and at that time, he was looked down on because of his performance in the full season. And a lot of people predicted Matt Murray would be the Penguin who Vegas would pick up, but they went with Fleury. And as you said, they made a lot of great trades and turned them into phenomenal picks during the middle of the season. And that's what really parlayed them to making it to the Stanley Cup before they fell to Washington.
It really is, you know what? In business school, they usually, in every business course, they will go over different models of what happens when this business goes in this direction versus this business going in the other direction under similar conditions, which works better, things like that. Well, in sports, it's the same way. The Vegas Golden Knights have to be the quintessential case study of what happens when you get the opportunity to build a team from scratch.
Absolutely. And again, they got a great GM in Ron Francis. Phenomenal player, obviously. Second all-time in assists behind Wayne Gretzky. And, you remember him managing, obviously, with Hurricanes, where they were pretty good under his stint and are still good now with some of his assets. So sky's the limit there. And again, it only helps the Rangers to get a great pick like this. Because that signifies, the rebuild that they had, really more of a retooling. That's over. And you're probably going to go back to a competitive Metropolitan Division with a lot of playoff contending teams in it, like New York, the other New York team, Carolina, Pittsburgh, maybe Philadelphia, Washington, maybe as well. So now is their chance to really prove they are going to be the dominant team in not only the Metropolitan Division, Eastern Conference as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it gets very interesting. The Islanders may have a very narrow window. Win it now because it's just going to get it harder later on.
Agreed. This is and Vegas as well. The two, for me, in my opinion, Vegas more so than the Isles. It's either really, to me, now or virtually never for Vegas. I think this is really the end of their peak because I really don't know how much more higher you can go from here. To me, this has got to be their swan song in terms of finishing this tremendous output on a high. It's like the Islanders. Remember, they made it Stanley Cup for 3 years, they got it for 3 years, and that was it. Even Buffalo Bills in football, remember, they made it to Super Bowl 4 straight years and couldn't win any, and that was it. For a long time, they couldn't get good again until now.
Yeah, you get the swan song, you get the last rites. It's really coming down to the best teams left. So this is where unfortunately I have to go since I am waking up tomorrow very early. But I just want to say one more. I just want to say like two more things. One is that Montreal in a very interesting spot. If they win the Stanley Cup, then Montreal is just going to be the second team in 3 seasons to win a Stanley Cup while they have a coaching change midway through the season because Montreal's coach is interim. And last but not least, I will be at the Nassau Coliseum tomorrow for the viewing party since the tickets are relatively cheaper. So hopefully I'll see.
No.
Yes?
I will not be there. They're on the road. I'll be there for Game 6.
Well, I'm going to be there for the viewing party because I like to take advantage of those cheap tickets. And I got great seats, even though that doesn't really matter since we're just going to be watching it on the Jumbotron.
And for all the listeners, tickets available now. Check the Islanders website for that.
Yeah, they're $10. So if you want to go, then go. That is I think it would be a good thing so you can get a similar feeling of watching an Islanders playoff game. So
in the crowd, oh yeah, fans are back. Yeah. Gotta enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. So this will probably definitely be my last time ever at the Nassau Coliseum when seeing an Islanders game in any capacity. I guess we'll see what happens with that. So that will wrap up the Islanders talk, and that will wrap up my night. It was great talking to you guys, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sadly, much like the Nets, Zach is gone, and we have to talk about the Brooklyn Nets.
Yes. Well, speaking of short windows and winning it now or never, Brooklyn Nets, super team, 3 max deals, a mid-season trade, giving up your entire future and some of your now for a superstar player, and the Nets don't even get to the conference finals. Let's read their season obituary, shall we?
What makes anyone think that the NBA Finals were a birthright for this team?
Talent.
The fact that they have the most dynamic offensive trio that we've seen really since the last KD Big Three with Steph, Clay, and KD. I think
paper
that made them a popular shoo-in. Yeah, exactly, on paper.
They produced the results in the regular season. Second best record in the East.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like the Nets.
Never having all 3 of them in the lineup at the same time. And you had.
I mean,
one of them hobbled with a wonky hamstring. Another one goes down completely. And the third one does a great job of carrying the team on his back. But in today's NBA, one man can't do it all.
No, not usually. We've seen it before, but it's not an everyday thing. It's not an every year thing.
Even Kawhi had Fred VanVleet a couple years back.
Right, and even when one guy does do the heavy lifting, it usually burns out. I mean, look at LeBron James.
LeBron in 07, yeah.
Yeah, or his first finals appearance. Yeah, I was thinking more so that last season in Cleveland.
Oh yeah, first finals appearance with Cleveland, where he had nobody with him.
And they burnt out because one guy can't do it all. But anyway, so it was a good season for the Nets. Let's not misconstrue it. But the thing is this team was not built for a good season. This team was built to win their first ever NBA championship. Yes, they had 2 ABA championships as the New York Nets. That was a long, long time ago. Okay,
I know, but you have to always count them because Dr. J was on that team.
Yes, I know. But either way, this team. Let's
look towards the future.
This team was the odds-on favorite, even after the Kyrie Irving injury. That they were still the Las Vegas favorite to win the NBA Finals. Okay, and I mean,
which meant the lack of respect given to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah,
because everybody thought that was Giannis's team. It's not. It's Middleton's team.
I disagree with you on that, but I think that they're not. I don't think it's 1 and 2. I think it's 1A and 1B. And I
agree with that. Yeah,
I just think
if anything, this conference proved that in a sense you're both right. Where more so, it's right as you said, Matt. Where one guy can't win it anymore. We saw Kevin Durant. He did everything humanly and arguably inhumanly possible. I mean, there are times where I think he must be out of this world. I don't know if he's an alien, is he a god or something? I don't know. Yeah. But first of all, he's doing this on a bad Achilles. He had just had surgery for this. The entire last season, no human's supposed to perform 110% better than he did the last time he was on the court.
Did not miss a second in this past game or in Game 5. Did not miss a second on a reconstructed Achilles and
setting an NBA record, mind you, in Game 7. 48 points, responsible for about a third, close to half, about a third of the points the Nets scored the entire game.
Yeah.
And I mean, quite literally was inches away from winning it all with that game tying 3 at the buzzer. Game tying 2 that was
longest 2-pointer in NBA history.
Quite literally inches away from being a 3. I mean, what Durant did was nothing short of remarkable. And you're right. It proved for Milwaukee, for them to win, they can't see it as just it's Giannis' team anymore, or even it's just Middleton's team. It's got to be the two of them, because Giannis had 40 points, 13 rebounds yesterday, and it was Middleton who made the tie-breaking shot with 40 seconds left to go in overtime, and he finished with a double-double.
Yeah,
So,
well, it should be noted, Chris Middleton didn't have a good night, but he had a good fourth quarter, and he hit the go-ahead shot in overtime. It's not about how you start; it's about how you finish. And I want to talk about how the Nets finished. Okay, first of all, let's just give a brief summary of the series. Okay, we spoke about most of it last week, right? Wasn't it already 2-2 last week?
Yeah, it was 2-2 this time.
Right. So I mean, the Nets got off to a 2-0 lead. Kyrie Irving gets hurt. They dropped the next two, right? It was 2-2 by the time we last spoke. Then, of course, the Nets down Kyrie Irving and playing James Harden when he really shouldn't have been but had to play. So it was basically just Kevin Durant and nobody else. KD drops a 49-point, 17 rebound, 10 assists, triple-double, completely carries them, gives the Nets a 3-2 lead, pulled off the whole comeback. The Nets were blown out in the first half. Well, they weren't blown out.
They were down 27 at third quarter.
Wow, okay. My memory's bad. But, yeah, I mean, they came all the way back. They circled the wagons. Kevin Durant carried them. Book definition of carrying. Put them ahead 3-2. You had 2 chances to clinch. Game 6, you lose. Oh, well, not even a big deal because you're coming back home to Brooklyn where you're 3-0 in the series. Nobody can beat the Nets in Brooklyn. And KD comes out firing on all cylinders. Harden not having a great night shooting, but he's getting them in foul trouble, hitting a lot of free throws. I think he was 10 for 10 from the free throw line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they were looking good. Yes, it was back and forth. Yes, there were a ton of ties. Yes, there were a ton of lead changes, but it was looking good for the Nets. Then in overtime, Bruce Brown hits the bank shot off the rebound, gives them a 2-point lead. And what did the Nets do? Instead of slowing the game down, the Bucks were in foul trouble, right? PJ Tucker had 5 fouls. He eventually fouled out. And Drew Holiday had 5 fouls. Chris Middleton had 3. Giannis had 3. Or maybe Giannis had 4. And the Nets were up by 2. The Bucks kept missing shots. What did the Nets do? Instead of slowing the game down, instead of slowing the tempo down, instead of taking time away from Milwaukee to come back, instead of further pinning them into foul trouble, they jack up threes. James Harden hasn't been shooting well. He's shooting threes. Joe Harris, there was a lid on the net all 7 games in this series for Joe Harris. He's jacking up threes, and they're missing them. This 7 seconds or less offense is, pardon my French, it's crap. It's crap. When you're holding the ball for only 10 seconds and scoring no points, it's the same thing as a turnover. You're giving it right back to Milwaukee with a bunch of time left. You're not settling down. You're not half resting KD and Harden with some slow, methodical possessions. You know, it's like throwing the ball when you're leading in football. An incompletion saves time. Right? And it gives the other team time to come back. When you're taking quick shots when you're winning and you're missing them, you're giving the other team infinite number of chances to come back. That's exactly what the Nets did. Ultimately, Giannis tied it, and then Chris Middleton untied it. And then that was that. The Nets could not hit another shot for the rest of the night. Really, all series long, Milwaukee did a great job taking the 3-point shot away from everyone except Kevin Durant, because he can't take the 3-point shot away from Kevin Durant.
Can't take any shot away from Kevin Durant.
Because he's taller than you. It's death taxes, and Kevin Durant is taller than you. I mean, go ahead.
How many points you scored in that overtime? I think the total
between the
6.
2 teams, wasn't it like 7? I think the Nets scored. Well, the Nets ended up scoring
2 and
6 for Milwaukee and 2 for Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
8.
That's because it's only 5 minutes.
5 minutes of play, of the most intense play you could possibly have in basketball, and neither of the teams hit the ocean.
Right. And the Nets hit it early too. Those 2 points were, I think, within the first minute. And it was
they
the
were.
Second. Yeah, and it was banked in by Bruce Brown off an offensive rebound. They were 2 second.
And that lead stuck for 3.5 minutes.
Right, exactly. So what they should have done, because it's not like they shot well the whole game anyway. I mean, yeah, Kevin Durant did, so I'm sure the whole team stats were skewed, and Bruce Brown had a good night too. Hats off to Bruce Brown. Very good night after having a rough game 3. But the Nets did not shoot well against the best defense in basketball. Okay, who can blame them, right? You're not going to get a ton of good looks against Giannis and Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton, who's a good defender in his own right. Drew Holiday, good defender. PJ Tucker, good defender. You're not going to get good looks, right? So what you should do when you have them in foul trouble and you're a great free throw shooting team, you should be charging the lane. You should be taking time off the clock. You should be using, ball movement. Yeah, that works. Being that everybody on the floor is a good passer, why not just pass the ball around, right? Take time off. But it's 7 seconds or less. It's that Mike D'Antoni stuff. I know that D'Antoni's not officially the head coach, but Nash is. And who did Nash play under? D'Antoni, who's his assistant, D'Antoni. It's the Mike D'Antoni offense. And Matt, what do you keep saying?
Mike D'Antoni, no D.
Right,
but
and you'll never.
There's another problem I have with Mike D'Antoni. Everything you just said.
Right,
when you go to fundamentals. A fundamental of basketball, if you're not hitting from the outside, take the game inside.
They had no inside play.
Do. So, yes, but now Milwaukee's bigger inside.
Yes, but
the Nets have no counter to Giannis. But even then, okay, Kevin Durant, he drove inside. No discipline.
Right.
We were just talking about a team, the New York Islanders, that had a level of discipline that a guy out of position knew what to do. And the Nets, in a situation where they need to know what to do, were doing it all wrong.
Right. I mean, you don't jack up threes like that. You don't just catch and shoot like that. Look, if you're wide open, I don't want you passing up a shot, but it's not like they were wide open. They were taking contested catch and shoot threes.
Yes, Holiday particularly doing a great job on top key in the wing, getting his hand up on Harris. Well, Scoop was on Harris a lot, and he was doing a good job applying pressure there. Holiday as well for the guards, and Middleton as well. Those three are really doing a good job applying pressure. Even Brook Lopez inside, for anyone not named Kevin Durant that was trying to come inside. He was clogging the paint, was forcing out the turnovers or missed shots before the ball even exited the hand, Yeah. The Nets just had no response. They were beat bad honestly, a game they really should have won.
Well, yeah, you could say that they should have won it, but at the same time, Milwaukee did earn that victory.
Oh, for sure. I'm not taking any credit from them. Yeah, all the starters stepped up. There were only 6 guys, I believe, that played for Milwaukee in last night's game.
Yeah. Well, this is a game in which, yes, the Nets did beat themselves, but not to an outstanding degree, right? Like, they didn't beat themselves like their in-state counterpart New York Jets beat themselves, right? Like, how many times did the Jets
look like fools?
Yeah, how many times did the Jets have countless opportunities to win and they go 0 for 10 on them, right?
But the Jets were a bad team.
So
yes, no, I know.
Top teams in the NBA.
That's the point.
But how many times have we seen them, like against the Patriots, get numerous occasions to win?
Just this season.
They go completely flat. The Nets did send this game to overtime. The Nets did take a lot of leads as they did give up, right? They put themselves in positions to win, but when it got most important, they did shoot themselves in the feet. But at the same time, Milwaukee...
They also had a lot of feet injuries. Kyrie, Harden.
Okay. Look, yes, maybe the reality is that if Harden and Kyrie were healthy, the Nets would have cruised through it in 4 games. Maybe, right?
We saw the first 2. It probably was.
We'll never know that, okay? And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, and the refs did that, and if Kyrie was healthy, blah blah blah. Because guess what? We don't have that. All we have is what actually happened, and what actually happened was the Nets lost 115 to 111, and they completely fell asleep in overtime. And by the way, let's point this out. The Nets defense, yes, they allowed a lot of offensive rebounds. They always do that. Death taxes, and Kevin Durant's going to hit the shot, and the Nets are going to allow offensive rebounds. Okay, 4 things that are guaranteed in life, 2 of them related to the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, but the Nets defense, this whole series, really this whole postseason, was good. It was good. It was good enough to win. And it was still good enough to win on Saturday night. Okay, it was good enough to win. I don't know. I can't see you guys. I don't know if you're making a face. Don't make a face. It was good enough to win. All right.
Actually, right?
The offense was not good enough to win. It just wasn't. If it wasn't Kevin Durant or Blake Griffin, who, by the way, Blake Griffin, hats off to him. He was excellent this series too. The Nets' power forwards in general, Blake Griffin, Jeff Green, and Kevin Durant, all had great series. Okay? Everyone else, no. I didn't even bother calculating numbers of anyone who wasn't Kevin Durant, but they shot under 35% outside of Kevin Durant's shooting.
Joe Harris
had 25.
Joe Harris, yeah. I mean, who would have seen that coming? I wouldn't have, because Joe Harris had a great series against Boston. I didn't think that the moment.
That's the thing. Well, not only that. First of all, obviously the Bucks keyed on Harris and found something that threw him off his game.
Right.
Yeah, but Giannis, you stick Giannis on him, man. You're 7-5 frame, man. You're not going to make a lot of shots. That was the answer.
That is true. There is a fraudulence, to be honest. The fact that he didn't take on KD ever in those 7 games.
Well, that you could also kind of argue as part of the Coach Bud.
Yeah.
Where
think about it too. The Nets didn't really take him on. They conceded his points.
Yeah,
just like the Bucks.
As long as you don't let Middleton. But they let Middleton beat them when
the X factor proved to be Harris. You throw Harris off his game, they lose. He hits a couple of extra threes, they win.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, when he is higher up on the totem pole, because when he's the fourth option, well, who cares what he does, right? But in this case, really, he was the second option because Harden wasn't even healthy. So he's more just a facility. He's just playing pass first. He's just playing the pass first role. The only thing you want him doing is charging the lane and getting someone in foul trouble, which he still did a very good job at, right? But in terms of shooting and scoring, Joe Harris is option number 2, So
there's a lot of questions for this Nets team. They have 9 free agents on deck for this offseason. Well, they could start talking about extensions for the big 3 tomorrow. Those aren't really set to kick in until next year.
All 3 of them are under contract for the next 2 seasons. Having said that, I think Harden might have an opt-out after next season. Is that true?
Yeah.
I believe that is factually true. Well, the other 2 don't have an opt-out. But Dinwiddie opted out. But Dinwiddie, I mean,
he'll opt out in about 10 minutes.
Who cares? Yeah. Dinwiddie, I think they were 2-1 with Dinwiddie and 46-23 without Dinwiddie. It's the same winning percentage.
Dinwiddie would have been nice to have.
It would have been nice to have.
Nice to add on for next year.
Yeah, he would have been nice to have now, but Dinwiddie is a replaceable player. Dinwiddie is a guy who should not be your facilitator. He was
effectively replaced. He was replaced by Harris.
Yeah, and even like Bruce Brown did a good job. Not that they're different players, obviously. Bruce Brown is a defensive guard. Spencer Dinwiddie is an offensive guard. Joe Harris isn't even a guard; he's a 3. But the conglomeration of those 2 replace the absence of Dinwiddie, right? Like the Nets, I don't think that the Nets, quote unquote, missed Dinwiddie. I don't think that the Nets would have won this series with Dinwiddie healthy. I think with Kyrie healthy, yeah. But either way, yes, the Nets do have a lot of questions this offseason, but really, I still think that they'll be right back in it next year. It's just that it's disappointing because it's now 1 less year that they have of this window. The window is really only 3 years long. And
right. And it's year 3 right now.
We're already 1 year in. So
you can't call back a chance that you lose. Now, that plays perfectly into the Yankees. Because talk about a team whose window is closing. Where some of the most hardcore Aaron Judge fans, as of last week, said he should be traded at the deadline.
How about that?
Week goes by, Yankees sweep Toronto, and eat 2 out of 3 from a better Oakland A's team.
Right.
This is a great thing. Okay, these wins were very narrow, and the Yankees got out by the skin of their teeth. But you want to know something?
They won.
That's against a good team.
Yeah.
You beat the good team.
Right. Best team in the AL West.
Yes.
Right. And the Yankees, leading up to this week, the Yankees had not really beaten any good teams. They They'd been losing to the Red Sox, the Rays. I mean, they got swept by the Tigers, who were like one of the worst teams in the MLB, right? So we didn't even know who they were good against. So it was nice to see them. The Toronto Blue Jays, they're, statistically they're a different team, but they're on the same plane as the Yankees, right? Similar win percentages, similar records. They were able to sweep them, which is good. They were able to leapfrog them in the standings. Then, of course, the Oakland Athletics, who have really given the Yankees some hard times over the past couple of years. And by the way, the Athletics should have swept the Athletics blew 2 leads. They blew 2. I mean, I'm not going to say should, but the Athletics were leading in all 3 games of the series. The Yankees were able to, dig themselves out of 2 of those 3 holes. That's a big deal. They showed some resiliency. Gary Sanchez is heating up. I called him the worst player in baseball a couple of weeks ago. Of course, the American League catching department is so weak. Really, catchers are horrible all across baseball. But catchers are so bad in the American League. Gary Sanchez might make the All-Star game this year. If you look at his numbers stacked up against other catchers in the league.
Particularly if he stays hot.
Right, yeah, if he stays hot, I don't have any faith whatsoever that he will, but, I mean, right now, you take what you can get.
Well, here's something that's interesting. It was, who was talking about it? Boone mentioned it, a couple other people mentioned it, that he did make some mechanical changes, got rid of the step. Yeah,
that was the first thing I noticed. Yeah. And not only that, but it's incredible how quickly you notice that how quickly the effects showed off. I mean, just today I believe when they won their 5th come from behind victory. Gary Sanchez was the one who knocked the go-ahead 2-run double, and he went 2 for 3 that day. And he's hit 344 and has 10 runs driven in, 6 doubles, 6 homers in his past 20 games, and that's really. A couple weeks ago was when you started noticing those mechanics shift. He's looked a lot better since he's really changed it up. And he's one reason why this Yankees team's a lot better. Because they really struggled to hit. They've been consistent at getting hits. Offensively, they've really done well. Of course, winning 7-5 against Oakland the other day. And against Toronto, scoring 6 runs and 8 runs, which is something they've struggled to do all season long.
Right.
And something we haven't even touched on yet is their defense. Because quite literally, that's what's won them 2 games of those series. It's the fact that they have 2 triple plays, including the first ever 1-3-6, 2-5-6 triple play in baseball history.
Yeah. Well, don't get it skewed. They're not a good defensive team. They're not by any stretch of they're probably a bottom 5 defensive team, but that's 2 undeniably huge plays. Obviously, a triple play clinched the game today, saved the game, helped them win, right? 5-4-3 straight up. But yeah, I mean,
that's one of those things though, where if you keep it consistent, you go from being a bottom 5 to a top 5. I'm not saying I get a triple game every series, but realistically, it's just getting that consistency is really going to be the key. Defensively and really more so hitting. Gary Sanchez waking up, Aaron Judge waking up. He had a great defensive catch as well in Buffalo. Pitching wise as well, holding it down once you're starting rotations out.
Right. And this goes into the consistency thing. I want to point this out. The Yankees won 2-1 today. Gary Sanchez had 2 hits. The Yankees had 3 hits. Right. So I mean, DJ
LeMahieu was the only other guy who got a hit off.
Right, yeah. So it's not like they played great, but obviously in the most opportune moments. They capitalized. They turned a triple play. They hit a 2-run double, and that was good enough, right? It's just about being good enough. Of course, having said that, the American League is so good that what does being good enough mean? Well, it means being very good. And the Yankees, so far, they have not been very good, and they still have a lot of ground to make up, especially within their own division. So this all remains to be seen, although it certainly appears as though they're trending up. They're finally 5 games over 500, so there is some breathing room there. They can afford to lose a game. Now let's go crosstown because we're running short on time here. Now the Mets had an up and down week. They had a 4-game series versus the Chicago Cubs. If you remember, the Cubs swept them in 3 games earlier this year. Well, the Mets won the first 3 games against them, lost the 4th, but they took 3 out of 4. So that's a big deal. They won the series. Then they traveled to D.C., take on the division rival Washington Nationals, and it was awful. They played 4 games in 3 days. They had a doubleheader on Saturday. They dropped 3 of 4 to the Nationals. They were only 2-1 against the Nationals this year anyway. They'd only played 1 series against them. This was their second meeting. They're now 3-4 against the Nationals this year. And Kyle Schwarber was the hero of the day for the Nationals. Hit 3 home runs.
Couple days,
really heating up. I think he has 5 home runs in the past 2 days. So
yes, that's an MLB record, by the way.
They couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't get him out. And the Mets have not been scoring except for when they hit the ball over the wall. They had 4 hits today for 2 runs. Pete Alonso and Kevin Pillar both hit solo home runs. So that was it. Taijuan Walker had a rough outing, but he's been so good this year, you have to forgive him. I mean, his 4 earned runs in 6 1/3 innings ballooned his ERA all the way up to 2.42. So that shows you how good he's been, right? And then, they'll take this on the nose. You're not going to win every series. And the Nationals, they're under 500, but they're not a bad team. They were red hot coming in. They won 5 games in a row.
Oh, they're still hot. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they took 2 of 3 from the Giants, who had the best record in the National League. Okay, so and the Nationals can pitch. Joe Ross is not bad. John Lester's still a good pitcher.
To me, that's what I think the Mets need to come out of, is that you look at a team like the Nationals, who are on the upswing now. Look at what they're doing right. A big thing is that rotation. I know part of the Mets' problem is injuries, but it's not something unbeknownst to them. General Manager Zach Scott acknowledged the Mets are likely going to shop for starting rotation help for the trade deadline. And there's a lot of names with question marks right now that you could look into. Maybe an Ian Kennedy or John Gray, Kyle Gibson. These pitchers on struggling teams, where Steve Cohen, who said he's not afraid to blast through the luxury tax threshold if necessary, can really look to. Because to me, that's going to be the difference maker there. Once the offensive bats of a Jeff McNeil or Michael Conforto or Brandon Nimmo start coming back, start performing to playing to expectation.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we can diagnose the Mets with at full health. The Mets don't have a weakness, right? And this year, their starting rotation has been very good. David Peterson, who had been having a horrible season, had 2 great starts this week. Okay, they won both of his starts. The only game
that was the biggest shock of the week.
yeah, he had a great. Well, we shouldn't be shocked. He had a great rookie year, and he was a first-round pick. But he was such a rough sophomore slump.
Right, exactly.
But it looked like he turned it around this week. Obviously, he made some sort of adjustment. He beat 2 pretty good teams. So, at least right now, the Nationals this past week were a pretty good team. So there's that. But this is really the rough thing. The Mets, obviously, we were talking last week, the Mets have played significantly less games than every team in baseball. They had the whole first series was canceled due to COVID. The Nationals had a COVID outbreak. They had a couple of rainouts. So the Mets have to make those games up. They have to play double headers. Well, the Mets have 8 games in the next 6 days.
Incredible.
Yeah. 4 games against the Braves, starting with a doubleheader tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Is tomorrow a doubleheader?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow's a doubleheader. Yes, and then 4 games with the Phillies, starting with the doubleheader on Friday.
Right.
This, of course, comes after playing 4 games in the last 3 days. So they have 12 games in a 9-game span with 3 doubleheaders. If the Mets, over the next 8 games, right, 4 against the Phillies, 4 against the Braves, if they go 3-5, 4-4 with no injuries, it's a win. It's a win.
Yeah.
Just that's the expectation now. Now that they're legit, now that they're good, that's the expectation. They gotta split at the very least.
Right.
Those 2 series.
And you know what? And here's the other thing too: is you're 3-1 against the Braves and 6-3 against the Phillies right now. I'm fine with it if they drop 3 or 4 to the Braves. Like, seriously, I will take anything as long as they don't go 0-8, 1-7, 2-6.
Don't pull an old Mets. This is a new Mets era.
Right, and don't get hurt. That's it.
And whatever you do.
If you leave the series healthy, fine, because they're getting Conforto back.